Hi, I'm Mary Greendale, and this is Just Thinking. Welcome to our annual series of interviews of candidates for local government offices. The town election is May 21st. We have contests for select board for an open seat. For planning board, we have an incumbent versus a challenger. And for school committee, we have 4 new candidates for 3 seats on the school committee. No incumbent chose to seek re-election to the school committee. I'm interviewing all these candidates. I have prepared questions specific to each board or committee. Each candidate will respond to the same questions for that office in their interview. This allows voters the chance to compare the candidates' approaches and thinking according to the issue. The interviews are done one at a time and will be posted when all the candidates for any office have been interviewed. My goal is to have the videos run 30 minutes, and they will be available on Holliston Hub HCAT's website, on Holliston Hub HCAT's YouTube channel, and on our Facebook page. Let's get started. And now let me introduce you to Alon Yaari. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, it's nice to have you here today, even though the weather isn't really nice out there getting in here today. Anyway, you have 2 minutes to, just tell us about yourself and tell me why you're running.
Okay, a little bit about myself. I moved to Massachusetts about 12 years ago, recruited to work at the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory at MIT. We've lived in Natick, my family and I, for a while. We moved to Holliston 3 years ago. I have a 3rd grader and a 10th grader in the schools currently. They'll be starting in 4th grade. My high schooler is actually at the Aggie, not at Holliston High School.
Well, I have a fondness for the Aggie myself.
The Aggie has its place relative to our school district. I am running for the school district. I'm running for the school committee because I have been wanting to run for local office for a long time, and over the past few years have found myself interfacing with the schools, interfacing with the school district a little bit more in positive ways through the IEP program and otherwise. And now this year there were 3 open positions. I was egged on by several people in my life, and even the chair recently inspired me a little bit, most importantly by the emails he started sending out about the budget coming up. And I realized that I'd really like to be part of this process.
Okay, all right, well, you'll find it's a big process. Anyway,
No doubt.
So what are the top 3 issues, in your opinion, that are facing the schools right now?
It's hard not to say budget as the first one. Budget has just been the word of the day for a while, not only at the school, but at the various committees around town and the town itself. The second issue is complexity. Budget has become the issue. It has because the schools have been complex. There's many different interests, there's many different laws on the state and on the federal level that are very involved in the school district. And it's just, there's so many different things that need to stick their fingers into the school district that the complexity of it all is a big part. And the third part is communications. There's been some great improvements in communications, I think, over the past couple of years. The ARCH plans and so on that the school committee has been showing. Where it's been breaking down a little bit has to do a little with the no confidence vote last year. I see that as being a communications issue, as well as with the community in general. So from the school committee, from the schools to the voters in town and the people who are not involved in the schools on a daily basis, I see a huge communications shortfall.
Well, there's definitely less information coming my way than yours because you get it all for the schools. You know, you get all the day-to-day stuff as a parent. But
yeah, that's a great example of it. The emails come to the parents on a regular basis, but I've spoken with a lot of people since I started the campaign for the school committee, and I keep hearing from people, what do you mean, what email? Because I make a reference to these various emails that we're getting, and I keep hearing that, what emails?
Yeah, there is nothing. Well, the thing is that there's only about 1/3 of the people in town have children in the schools, maybe a little bit less than 1/3.
So you're saying 2/3 of the people in the schools are paying for the schools without having children immediately in the schools?
Yeah, which is completely different from the way it used to be. It used to be that we had, not only did we have a lot more families with children, closer to 75%, but we also had more children per family, which was a societal change. But at any rate, so right now, yeah, you're running around on, a very small population.
Now, to be fair, there is the ability for anybody in town to sign up for
There's a newsletter.
For the newsletter, for the chairs, occasional emails, but there are windows available for when you can sign up for those, right? So there is a friction of communication to get to that.
Yeah, yep. Occasionally they send out a notice that's saying if you're interested you can sign up, but it is periodic. It's
And
when they only
there's
do
a
it.
small window in which you can do it.
Exactly, and if you missed that email, well, sorry. Anyway, do you attend town meeting and do you understand its role as it relates to the schools?
I attend as much as I can. There are a lot of different things to attend during any given month, but I do understand the role of the schools versus the town, and a lot of that comes right back to budget, right? But there are a lot of other ways in which the school district and the town interact. For one thing, the town is the source of funds, right? That's where it comes from. My tax bill pays for the schools, but that's through the town. I don't have a separate line item for the schools. I do know that 5 years ago and greater, the school budget was less than half of the town's budget. Currently, the school's budget is greater than 55%, so rising rapidly, right? So then there's the fight, it's not the fight, the struggle between where do the funds go, right? Right now there's going to be, on the May election, there's going to be 2 initiatives for voters to vote on, dealing with sidewalks and dealing with rebuilding of the town's facilities. Those have to compete with all of the different needs of the school district. The schools need to be rebuilt in certain ways. There's a question about rebuilding the high school, repairing the other schools in town, resurfacing the field. Those are all monies that can either be spent on the town or be spent on the school district. It's all one and the same at some level.
It is. So as a school committee member, if you're serving as a school committee member, what is your role with the community?
The first role, and I think I learned this the best when I was gathering signatures from the public to be on the ballot, is as a listener. There are a lot of pent-up grievances. Some of them are more extreme than others, but there's definitely perceptions that people have and they want to be listened to. And one of the biggest take-homes I had was that a lot of people don't feel they're being listened to. An example of that is the school start times. That I understand that's been a huge part. It didn't affect me personally until I started listening to others. And my daughter will be starting at the Miller School in the fall, so this is going to be important to me and my family. So first is being the listener, being a listener. The second is as an ambassador, right? So the school committee does get to listen to a lot of different interests, makes decisions on it, votes on it, and then has to come back to the community and explain why and how they reached those points. Why, so ambassador, meaning as I'm listening, I also get the opportunity to explain to somebody the reason we made that decision. Let's say I was part of the school start time decision. The reason I voted for that was because, and I can explain the detail of why. And the another part of that, I think I touched on a little bit, is that voters in this town are not always that involved. I wish it were so. I wish I was more involved in all the different committees. There are a lot of different committees. There's a lot of different ways to be involved in town. We have to put trust in the people that are elected, into the school committee, into all the committees, that they're making good decisions, that they're having our interests in mind, that I can go about my life and not pay attention to the school committee, but know that good things are happening there. And that is one of the roles. And being a good listener will help with that as well.
Okay. What strengths and skills do you think you personally will bring to the committee? And describe any high-thinking or visionary ideas that you might have.
I currently work at a local robotics company. I'm a senior principal software engineer. And some of the part of that I think would be most valuable to me in the school committee role is understanding what it is that in technology roles currently we're looking for recruits. I see a lot of resumes. I do a lot of recruiting.
Yep.
I see a lot of people from high schools. I see a fair number from Massachusetts students. of people who went to high school in Massachusetts, a lot from private schools, a lot from certain school districts. I have not yet seen one across my desk that's from Holliston. It's coincidence, right? It's just a numbers game. But I do have a good sense of what we are looking for as a technology company, as a robotics company, what we'd hope students have. And from the time they're in high school is a great time to start. I know there's a great robotics program here. I've heard quite a good bit about it, and I've met some of the students in it as well. But it's a small number of the students that are here, and it's a small number of the students that are getting exposed to low-level computer architectures, to algorithms. But that's definitely part of it, is bringing that in. But that's only a small part. The school committee doesn't have a role into the robotics club necessarily, not a direct role anyway. But I started talking a little bit about this earlier, but it's not my visionary program, but it's part of a process you asked about, is what would I bring to the committee? I listen to the committee meetings. I watch a lot of votes. I've watched a lot of the votes happen. I see a lot of 7-0 or however many are there to 0 votes happening. And I regularly feel that they're doing a fine job for the most part, but I don't hear enough discussion. I don't feel like I'm convinced that that was a solid one-way vote. My hope is to improve communications by asking why a little bit more. I'd like to be convinced. Convince me. Okay, we're voting for that. Actually, it's something I agree with wholeheartedly. There was a recent vote on bringing algebra to the 8th grade. I think it's wonderful. I think I wish it had started a long time ago. And I certainly support that. But in the discussion, there could have been, I would have still raised my hand and asked a couple more questions to answer that. There were a couple of community members that spoke up, I think quite eloquently in that case. But I would have liked to know a little bit more. How does this impact the budget? Really, why is the school committee deciding this? What have we been doing until now? Questions like that, as an example. So that would be those types of process. And I want to kind of repair this communications, right? You're putting your trust in me to sit there for you at these meetings. I want to ask the questions maybe you would have asked if you had the opportunity.
All right. How did you respond to the news that the teachers union took a vote of no confidence in the superintendent, and did that contribute to your decision to run?
What? That was my reaction then.
Yeah.
It did not. So there's a running theme here, right? One about communications. It didn't explicitly cause me to run for this position. It's something that's happening while I'm running for this position. I looked at the time. I read the union's press release on what their concerns were, and I also considered they can't exactly put out a letter to fire the school committee, but they can put out a no confidence vote in the superintendent. So I read it as the union's disagreement and unhappiness with the superintendent and the committee in general. I can tell you that this year, and last year there were 2 new members, right, who started at about that time, Dan Alfred and I apologize for forgetting her name.
That's all right. I'll remember sometime.
You will remember as well.
Yeah.
You interviewed her, I recall.
I'm sure I did. No, just have to remember.
They both ran unopposed, actually.
Right.
This year there's 3 open positions, 3 seats that were vacated, and the incumbents aren't running again. There are 4 people running for them. This is an opportunity, regardless of who fills those 3 seats. So that's about 5 new people who have entered in for the union to be talking to and discussing things with.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's really allowed, just from a legal standpoint.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant.
Okay.
Yes, I understand the separation between them, but I meant a new group for the union to now be. I have to find the right terms for this, right? But they're now interacting with the school committee and who's overseeing the superintendent. That's new people for them to look at. Because the reason that I bring this up is that their documentation, their explanation felt that the school committee was operating in their best interests, which of course the school committee should be, but in an interest that may not be the best for the union, may not be the best for the students in the school district. These are 5 new people who don't come in with the history that the prior group had. And so a new group for everybody to be working with together. That's how I look at it.
Okay. I've never asked this question before, but at any rate, what grade would you give the district? And is there a school that you'd want to, give it? If it were me sitting there, I would be saying, I don't mind giving a grade for the district in general, but boy, each individual school, I just say that I think they're all, whatever. But anyway, I'll let you try that one.
Okay.
It's a tough question.
Well, so I had elementary school education personally in Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, which is a great education. But my middle and high school years were in Los Angeles. So I was in inner city high school in Los Angeles. And I have to tell you that just about every school in Massachusetts seems like an A on a grading scheme compared to
when you go to Los Angeles.
when you grew up in Los Angeles, yes. That said, while I wasn't accepted to MIT as a student, I was able to flourish and grow. Right, I got a great education at the school, and that's the background for how I'm putting these grades together. Effectively, from my perspective, everything in the school district gets an A. And the reason why is we're well above a threshold here of acceptability. The students have an opportunity at the schools to get from it what they need to get an education, if they want to, if they're motivated, and if they have the support to move forward and to find their place in life. And I think that many of these supports are here. I listen to the committee meetings, the diversity and inclusion discussions that they're having, which at the end of the day is all about bringing the support to every student and see those opportunities being reached here. There are discussions, there are issues, there are problems, there's things that can be improved, right? So that's the problem of assigning an A, is that it's saying, okay, everybody's doing fine, you don't need to improve. There are places that can be improved. I also want to say that I've been working with the IEP services at Placentino and at Miller, and compared to where we used to live in Massachusetts especially, and not even comparing to them, just standing on their own, I found them to all be A's, thoroughly A's. They've really taken my children to heart. My younger daughter has needed some support services, which she's starting to grow out of, but a lot of that is due to the support and the investigations and the insight that the IEP community has seen. Now, I have talked to people who have had similar experiences to me and also find them to be wonderful, but I have also spoken with a couple who start to find some faults or find some issues with the IEP program. That's where listening is going to come in on my part in this role. Because I've also had some experience with the high school IEP program and found them to be exceptional as well, personally. But I still do need to do a lot of listening to those who are not finding it to be the best for them.
What is your feeling about the value of public education in general?
The value of public education. Horace Mann, one of the originators of the public school system in the United States, put a wonderful thing into motion. There is the opportunity to take from the schools in the United States, in Massachusetts, in Holliston, to take from it as much as you want to pull from it, right? That does require some family support. Not every student has the foresight to pull. Some of the teachers are good at pushing. But a great public system, which we would hope to have here, is one that can push to every student, can provide support to every student, can provide that opportunity for everyone.
Just one additional question there. You really think that every student can get everything he or she needs?
There are exceptions. Okay, so thank you for asking me to clarify that. That was one of the issues that was addressed by bringing algebra to the 8th grade, where it prior wasn't. So students that have the opportunity to excel but can't get to the level they want. But that's kind of a minority side. There's also IEP students and others, but they're going to do the best that they can, the best that can be available, and the best that can be given in reasonable abilities from a school. Where I went to high school, in the city, there was a surprising number of students that didn't graduate. There were 1,200 students in my graduating class, and about, it's a large school.
Big.
The schools in Los Angeles are huge.
Yeah.
Of them, in the year that I graduated, 1990, approximately half of them did not graduate. It was one of the worst years for the LAUSD. They've since improved things quite a bit in the school district there. I was in a group of students who were pulled as hard as we could. I was in AP classes and in honors classes, but it was a teacher in particular of mine that he helped students enter competitions. I won the Rockwell Computer Science competition, second place, 2 years in a row in high school. And that was all due to the influence, not all, mostly due to the influence of a teacher I had. A student I went to school with who I'm still good friends with won the NASA prize to have his project put onto the space shuttle. And we were just one high school of many, many across the country. And there were other competitions that were won as well. So while, let's say, I finished calculus in the 11th grade, and there were no math classes for me to take anymore, there was the science teacher who managed to find a way to go above and beyond that. So you're asking me, does every student have the ability? Okay, on the top end, which is what I'm answering, there's still ways to pull. There's always a good way to pull more.
Okay. So just briefly, we don't have to spend a lot of time, but the idea of vouchers for students to attend, other schools and so forth.
This is a question of where money goes, right? So taking money out of our school system and for individual students sending them to other places. We already have a little bit of a school choice program here. To start, I personally know one student in Natick who attends Holliston High School. I know her family, I should say. And the school choice is a great start. It's actually, I think, a good beginning solution for that. There's charter schools in some other school districts. Krista McAuliffe School, by all accounts, is a great school in Framingham. Vouchers have their place, especially as alternatives for things like out-of-district placements and other situations where what a student needs isn't necessarily something that's reachable within the confines of the school district here. But how it's done is tricky and needs a lot of work to be done right.
And I think there are probably any number of examples that you would be able to investigate in other parts of the state and elsewhere in the country to, if it ever were to be explored, I'm sure it won't be the first one.
It becomes politics at some point.
Well, unfortunately, that is often true, but...
That's true with a lot of things in the school district.
Yeah. In some schools, some parents have sought to have control over curriculum and books being used in class and so forth. Explain how you feel about that.
Banning books is silliness. Two of my favorite authors, Ray Bradbury and Kurt Vonnegut.
Oh dear. Both of them, huh?
Both of them. We can add Steinbeck to that list too.
That's
but
okay.
The number of his books that have been banned are fewer. We'll add Douglas Adams for
Can we do Ayn Rand while we're here?
Ayn Rand, I don't have as much experience reading.
Okay.
Those are the authors I've read the most. And I don't know that Hitchhiker's Guide has ever been banned from maybe it has been. Vonnegut certainly has been banned.
Right.
Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451, ironically, has been banned from schools.
It was mandatory reading when I was in school.
My daughter at the Aggies has just finished reading it, actually.
Yeah. So it's really interesting to me how that line can move so wide and so far.
I had the pleasure of meeting Ray Bradbury on several occasions in life, and I couldn't imagine banning any of his books from the school. There are questions. I noticed some of the questions on Facebook from some of the candidates have received in the past few years have to do with the curriculum as well. I would be one vote on a committee, and I can bring in the communications gap. I can't promise how I might vote in any direction, but I can say that I will listen and I will ask those questions. You need to convince me that we're making the right choice when we're making decisions on what gets taught in the school, on the limited amount that the school committee gets to do that, and they do get to do it. Dan Alfred himself points out, I've heard him point out, that the committee does get to vote on budget, and that's one way of setting those decisions. So on those opportunities, I will have the opportunity to ask why. Convince me.
The school committee has little direct authority over the operations and curriculum. So within those confines, let's go back to those things that you wanted to see, the goals, what you would like to work on and so forth, the budget being one of them. What are you setting for sort of target goals for yourself? Again, as that one person, it's really hard to remember that sometimes, but it is just one.
You're reminded every time you have a vote, though.
You are, but you know, the interesting thing is that sometimes we will make the mistake of saying, well, I'm going to ensure that we do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, I don't think you are. You know, I really don't think you are, and be very careful of making those kinds of commitments. And I'm not saying that you have or said anything like that today, but it's just always something to remember and remind the public about.
I can't imagine having an agenda per se to come in. I know that there are people who would want to join the school committee who would come in saying, I need to make sure that the schools do this, have this type of curriculum, or ban these books. In order to do that, you need to come in as a group. You need to have other people who you're coordinating with. You need to get the buy-in of everybody else on the committee and get the buy-in from the community, who then looks at what you're doing, takes a look at your actions, and then agrees with it on the next election cycle for you. And I think anybody who tried to go well against the public's desires would certainly find interesting people. Well, this is a 3-year cycle, right? Would find a lot of good discussions in the next 2 election cycles, and then finally in the third one not find themselves in the committee anymore.
But what would you like to see? Is there anything in particular, when you talk about communications, is there something that you intend to offer as an idea, or actually, you know?
I'd like to see a little bit more accessibility from the school committee to the public. There have been a few of these. They initially called them office hours, meeting at the local coffee shop to discuss the budget. There are certainly limited opportunities, and they were purpose-driven. There are no office hours otherwise. I would love to see office hours in general.
There have been historically.
There are not currently that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I don't know about this year, but I know in the prior year there were always 2 or 3 members that would be available. Of course, you can't do the whole committee because it's a quorum thing, but
right.
You know that you would have a couple of members that would regularly have coffee hours and stuff.
Well, that would be at the start of my communications push there. So one would be during the meetings themselves, asking the right questions. The second would be to have the office hours for that. So that's really a large part of my drive. When I looked at what's driving me to join the committee, you asked at the very beginning of this talk, a lot of that is I feel like there's a committee that knows a bunch of stuff I don't know, making decisions, but I need to know that stuff to feel good about those decisions. I want to be part of that too, so I have to ask a few more questions. That's communications. And the second part of it is the budget. This year, the budget discussions have, and I know this is true for a lot of the school districts in Massachusetts, are following what's called a level services budget. What we're looking at are the numbers of what needs to be added to the budget. So we're saying everything that's already in the budget is going to stay the same. Here's what needs to be added. And this is where our debate is and what we're going to be discussing. I'm not a huge fan of the level services budget. There's a big need for increase in dollars. The town needs more money. There's a need for more money everywhere. Unless we are going to double everybody's tax basis, there needs to be discussion of where are the current funds going already, not just looking at where is the increase going to be going. And I understand that there's some confines there, but I've heard no discussion of that. It's not on the table, and I'd like to see that on the table. So that's a big interest of mine as well.
Okay. You have a couple of minutes now to do your final elevator pitch and sort of wrap it up.
I just did.
Yeah. Well, think up something else, but expound a little more.
I'll summarize a little bit. I don't see the school committee as being a political, trying to find the right word for this. It's not the place where politics need to be legislated. I know that in recent times especially during COVID times, the school committee became an angry place. Not necessarily our school committee, which was, I'm thankful for that. It became an angry place, became a political place. This isn't the place for this. This is the place for children, for education, for making sure that we're providing the best for the next generation. It's also a place where, as you mentioned, the 2/3 of the people in town who don't have kids feel comfortable that when 55% of their tax dollars are being spent on it, that it's being spent wisely and effectively and with the proper discussion and the proper communications to the public.
It's a biggie. It's a biggie.
It's a big one for me.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's a big one for all of us. I really do.
When I was meeting people in town in preparation for this run, and I would speak with people, say, I'm interested in running for the school committee. Can you please explain to me what are your interests in the school? More than half of the people I spoke with said, I don't have any kids in the school district. And I said, but you pay taxes, right? And then I'd hear a lot more about it.
Yeah. You said the magic word.
Taxes.
Taxes. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for participating in this conversation with me.
Thank you very much for having this conversation.
Not a problem. You've done your homework, so please remember to vote on May 21st. It's important for you, your family, and the community. Thank you.